August 22nd. Uncle Nigel spent the entire day, 8 hours, on the beach. But it looks as if his new skin is refusing to tan. He has moved down to sun protection factor 2. He and Sarah had an unpleasant argument yesterday, the day he lost his tan. Apparently, when they woke up, the sheets were covered in bits of brown. At first, Sarah thought it was mould or something that had flaked off the ceiling, but it was actually dead skin. She said it made her feel sick, and Nigel just flew at her. You could hear their voices down the corridor. I saw Nigel stripping off on the beach. There was a bright pink strip going from his neck to his belly, as if someone had been trying to unwrap him in a hurry. This was where the old skin had fallen away, but the new skin had already grown to take its place. Ugh. As for the rest of his tan skin, it was obvious he was going to lose that too. It was already muddy and unhealthy. He couldn't move without a bit flaking off. He was doing what he could to save it. I noticed that he'd brought down a big bottle of After Sun and was rubbing that in as if he thought it was somehow sticking back together again. I didn't think it would work. I went out again with Cassian, and also with his older brother Nick. I told them about Uncle Nigel, and they both thought it was very funny. Nick told me that in Victorian times nobody wanted to have a suntan. It was considered socially inferior. This is something he learned at school. When I got back to the hotel, Uncle Nigel was still lying there with Aunt Sara just a few metres away, sitting with her Stephen King under an umbrella. The book must have been amusing her, because there was a definite smile on her face. As for my uncle, I think the whole situation is getting out of hand. His new skin isn't tanning, but it is burning. It's like it's already gone a virulent shade of crimson. Unlike me, he hasn't been wearing a hat, and a large heat bubble has formed in the middle of his head. It's like one of those white blobs you get in cartoons when Jerry hits Tom with a hammer. All the other hotel guests have begun to avoid him. You can see when they walk down to the sea. They make a circle so they don't have to get too close. I noticed, incidentally, that he's still reading A Tale of Two Cities. But we've been here for almost 2 weeks, and he's still on page 12. August 25th. Cassian and Nick left today, and the hotel feels empty without them. Another family arrived, 3 girls. To be honest, I'm beginning to look forward to going home. No news from Mum. She still hasn't had the baby. I'm missing her. And I'm really worried about Uncle Nigel. All his old skin has gone now. It's either fallen off or it's been taken over by the new skin, which is a sort of mottled mauve and has a life of its own. His whole body is covered in boils and tiny volcanoes. These actually burst in the hot sun. I swear, I'm not making it up. They burst and yellow pus oozes out. You can actually see it. Every 10 minutes he seems to have another boil somewhere on his skin. There are lots more sores on his face. They've run down the side of his cheeks and onto his neck. If he had a chin, I'm sure that would be covered in sores too. And he's still trying to get a tan. This afternoon I'd had enough. I don't often talk to Uncle Nigel. For some reason I always seem to irritate him. But I did try telling him that he looked frankly horrible. And I was really worried about him. I should have saved my breath. He almost chewed my head off, using the sort of language you wouldn't expect to hear coming from a head teacher. So then I tried to tell Aunt Sara what I thought.